What gives me the right to speak about modern day policing or police culture with such authority? It's actually a very good question. I've been asked numerous times, sometimes in a more insulting way, but if you don't know where I'm coming from, then of course you're going to ask. So let me just kind of get right into it. I come from a police family, and I mean a real life blue bloods police family. My father was a police officer for 30 years in the largest municipal police service in the country. So I've been exposed to policing my entire life, but it gets even deeper than that. My parents had 5 boys. 4 of us became police officers. My older brother became a police officer first. Then my younger brother became a police officer. Then I became a police officer. Then my other younger brother became a police officer. The 5th brother, he became a doctor. He's kind of the outcast of the family. My dad spent the majority of his career with the ETF, the Emergency Task Force, often referred to as a SWAT team or known as a SWAT team throughout North America. And they were the people getting out of the trucks, going to the gun calls. It was high energy, high adrenaline. I mean, it was like, wow, policing. Growing up, this is really what you wanted to be like. These guys had the best stories. So my dad's friends were pretty much all police officers, and that's not uncommon at all for anybody in law enforcement or emergency services, I should say. And so at all these family events and functions, barbecues, I was exposed to policing because all they would talk about was policing, and all they would do was share their stories. And their kids also wanted to be police officers, so they would all talk about policing. And that's not uncommon either for the children of those in law enforcement or, again, other emergency services to want to follow their parents' footsteps. Now, truth be told, I had no plans on becoming a police officer growing up. And my dad actually tried to talk me out of becoming a police officer. He said I thought too much like an entrepreneur. I had an entrepreneurial spirit about me, and perhaps he was right. Back to the police culture. There is such a thing as police culture, and people would actually, most police officers would acknowledge that. And they would also acknowledge the fact that there are many good aspects about police culture, but there's also a negative side. There's a negative police culture as well. Now, I wouldn't even say that's a bad thing. I think it's normal that there's going to be a culture around any profession. And I would also say that police culture has slowly been changing throughout the years. I'm almost 50 years old now, and again, I've been around police officers and emergency services personnel my entire life. I'll say this, police officers also, it's very common that they get into relationships with other police officers or other individuals who work in emergency services, police officers, firefighters, paramedics, a lot of police officers marrying nurses and such, for an example. Kind of a bit of a stigma there, but listen, it happens. It's not uncommon at all. But let me get into the positive and negative side. There is certainly a positive aspect to police culture. There's that camaraderie, that sense of family that you just don't get with other professions because of some of the experiences that you have. And it's very, very strong, and it's something to be very proud of. There is a negative aspect of police culture, and a lot of it has to do with, well, some of the stresses of working shift work, but also, of course, some of the stresses of witnessing some of the terrible incidents at these radio calls, being placed in traumatic situations, very dangerous situations, which could lead to historically dealing with these issues in a variety of different ways, not always in a positive way. Again, there's been more, it's slowly changing, but you would have looked for ways to deal with this, and it could be through a variety of different ways, alcohol or substance abuse. And I'm not going to get into all the details, but I've been exposed to all levels from, simple bad habits all the way to suicide my entire life. Now, some of these negative aspects of police culture, if I wasn't exposed to them in my own family or my own experiences, then I was exposed to them in the families of others while I was growing up. There are many illnesses and diseases which are brought upon by stressful situations that you're placed in, but also just being on shift work and working night shift. And it's not just that you're working night shift and you're on watch, sitting in a chair, but no, you're working night shift at 3, 4 in the morning, and your heart rates, you're going from a resting heart rate to a very excited heart rate within a fraction of a second. You're you're going from 0 to 100 very, very quickly. And then you're expected, or you're supposed to come down just as quick, which is very, very difficult to do. So it's very, very hard on the body. And listen, historically, you do what it took to get through the shift, to get through the next morning. And sometimes you're working overtime, or sometimes you had to go to court the next day. It's just very, very hard on your body. I consider myself very lucky that I grew up exposed to policing and police culture, and I've had these experiences at such a young age. And the conversations with some of these individuals who were in the prime of their lives policing back in the day, and now I still speak to them, and they're retired, and many years have gone by since they've left the job, and they talk about their best memories as a police officer, what they miss, what they regret. And I'm happy to share some of these stories with their permission, which I will be doing in the future. But I'm very, very lucky to be in this position. I'm honored. So, policing, police culture, emergency services, I've been around it my entire life. And I enjoy making these videos and sharing my thoughts, my experiences, as well as some of my failures, not just with members of the public, but other police officers and those interested in a career in policing. So please, I would love it if you would share your thoughts and leave me a comment. I read every single comment, and I've mentioned in the past, I do respond when it's appropriate to do so. Thank you very, very much for taking the time to watch this video. And until the next one, be safe out there, look after one another, and perhaps we will see you again.